Now, what's behind the recent Russian military provocations that have been aimed at the United States? Well, you know recently that the USS Donald Cook that was sailing in the Baltic Sea was buzzed by two Russian Su-24 jet fighter planes, and one of the planes came within 30 feet of the Cook before they finally took off. We know recently, just a few years ago, a Russian nuclear submarine was floating around in the Gulf of Mexico almost for a year before it was detected. A Russian nuclear submarine, now those things carry nuclear warheads, nuclear missiles that can do a lot of damage to the United States and throughout the world. And other Russian fighter planes have been buzzing up and down the Pacific coast off the coast of California and in and around, they've been seen in and around Alaska and American airspace. And this has been increasing in recent years. Now, what is the purpose? What are the Russians trying to do? Are they trying to provoke us into a war uh, with Russia? I don't believe so. I believe that, and this is my own opinion, I believe that Russian President Vladimir Putin is trying to influence the 2016 upcoming presidential election this fall. In what way? By showing the Americans to be weak under Barack Obama and to influence the Americans to believe that Hillary Clinton, who's the presumptive candidate who will be elected president, unless anything drastically happens, she'll be elected president in the fall, to show her as being nothing more than an extension of Barack Obama. Putin wants to make America look weak in the eyes of the world. He wants to embarrass the United States by showing the Americans to be weak and unwilling to challenge the Russians. Now, common sense tells us that why would Vladimir Putin want the Americans to elect somebody that would stand up to him? Well, he doesn't want that. What he wants is somebody who will work side by side with Russia, who will allow the Russians to expand their military and political influence throughout Eastern Europe and into Western Europe. Now, that's prophetic. The Old Testament book of Ezekiel, chapter 38 and 39, tells us of the rise of superpower in the end times that it calls God. Well, who is God? Well, God was an ancient name for the Russian tribe of Rosh, where many modern Russians are descended from, the tribe of Rosh. That's where we get the name Russia from. And it talks about the rise of Gog and its military coalition as a superpower in the last days. And that superpower and that coalition are going to overtake the United States and NATO as the premier military force in the world. Well, that hasn't happened yet, and that's probably several years away. But we're seeing the beginning of that with Russia's increasing provocation against the United States. It's increasing military expansion in Russia and its influence in Eastern Europe. We're seeing that happen. But for the immediate time, I believe that Putin wants to influence the 2016 election in the United States by not coercing, let's use the proper word, influencing the Americans to elect somebody other than Hillary Clinton, somebody who will allow Russia to operate and do what Russia wants to do, and will slap economic sanctions on the Russians and dump all this cheap oil on the world market as the United States did. So that's what I believe is behind this. And I believe in the run-up to the 2016 election this year in November, we're going to see a lot more incidents like this between Russia and the United States. What happens is will be very, very interesting to see whether or not we respond and we shoot one of these Russian planes down, or we respond in any sort of military fashion. I don't think the Russians want war with the United States because they have too much money invested here in America, probably at least $250 billion or more. And right now, Russia needs America a lot more than America needs Russia. But that's going to change in the future. Prophecy tells us, but for the here and now, I believe that this is nothing more than an attempt by Vladimir Putin to influence the 2016 presidential election in November. Now, let's just wait and see what happens, but I believe that's what this is all about. Thank you again.